There's a war raging every day, a war between noise and presence, between boys who shout to be seen, and men who move in silence to be remembered. The world tempts you to speak, to comment, to explain, to justify. But every word you spend recklessly is power leaking out of you, one drop at a time. What kind of man are you becoming? The one who needs every ear turned toward him to feel alive? Or the one who builds so deeply that the world feels his weight before he ever utters a word? Silence isn't emptiness. It's compression. It's gravity. It's a slow forging of something unstoppable beneath a calm surface. So the question is not, how can you speak louder? The real question is, how heavy can your silence become? There's a gravity to real men, a silent pull. You feel it the moment they walk into a room, not through their words, but through their presence. Because the man who masters silence masters power. Noise is easy. Noise is cheap. Anyone can fill a room with noise. But stillness? Stillness crushes. Stillness demands that the world come to you. What kind of man folds when tested by silence? The kind who needs a room's approval to breathe. But the man who holds his tongue, who lets the air tighten, who lets the silence work for him. He is the anchor in a sea of boys chasing validation. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't scramble to fill the void. He lets the void work in his favor. Because in silence, gravity grows. And gravity always wins. Most men fear silence because they fear meeting themselves inside it. In the noise, you can hide. In the chaos, you can pretend. But in the silence, there's nowhere left to run. No crowd to impress. No audience to perform for. Just you, naked, stripped, revealed. And what do you see there? A builder or a beggar? Real men confront that question daily. They don't drown it out with endless chatter, cheap opinions, or false urgency. They don't rush to speak to prove their relevance. Because they know silence is where truth lives. And only the strong dare live with truth. A man who can sit inside his own silence without fear can stand anywhere without apology. A boy rushes to be heard. A man waits to be felt. Words are easy currency, spent recklessly by the desperate. But real men invest their silence like gold, letting its value appreciate with time. Do you speak because you have something real to say? Or do you speak because you can't bear the weight of being unseen for a moment longer? Weakness shouts. Strength whispers or says nothing at all. It's in the restraint, the patience, the control burn of holding back, that real dominance forms. When you speak less, every word matters more. Every glance cuts deeper. Every move hits harder. Because power is never in the volume of noise. It's in the depth of presence. A man's worth is measured not by how much he says, but by how much he doesn't need to say. Noise seeks validation. Silence asserts certainty. When a man knows who he is, he no longer begs to be understood. He no longer explains himself to the unqualified. He no longer exhausts his breath trying to be accepted. He simply moves, and the world adjusts. Why waste words defending your value to people too blind to see it? Why spend your life auditioning for approval you don't need? A real man speaks less because his life speaks for him. His consistency, his character, his gravity. Those are his words, and they speak in ways noise never could. A man of silence doesn't need a stage. He is the stage. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is a gathering of storms inside the soul. It's the fire restrained, not extinguished. The fury held, not forgotten. Weak men confuse movement for strength. They believe acting busy is the same as being effective. But storms that rage aimlessly are nothing but destruction. Real men move with intention. Slow, precise, surgical. Because power without control is noise. Strength without restraint is chaos. What kind of man can you trust? The one who waits. The one who watches. The one who speaks only when the words he releases cannot be ignored. True stillness is not passivity. It is mastery waiting for the right moment to strike. Every man must ask himself, am I building noise or am I building weight? The world today rewards aloud the flashy, the constant screamers. But it remembers the men who moved silently and built legacies. Look at history. The real giants rarely shouted. They move like mountains, slow, deliberate, undeniable. Noise may win a moment, but gravity wins centuries. Are you playing for applause today, or impact forever? Are you scattering your energy like sparks, or forging it into a flame that no wind can extinguish? Real men don't chase attention. They command it, and they command it through the unseen, the slow, the quiet, the relentless. Because only what is rooted deeply survives the storms to come. Silence is a forge. It burns away weakness. It purifies focus. It tempers will. In silence, you hear the fears that noise buries. You feel the dreams you were too busy to acknowledge. You meet the man you've been avoiding. Most run from that fire. They flood their lives with distractions, noise, movement. Anything but a hard work of facing themselves. But real men, they step into the forge. They let the fire consume what's false. They let the weight shape what's real. What emerges is not just a man who can endure silence, but a man who uses it, a man who builds from it, a man who wields it like a weapon. Because silence, mastered, becomes an unstoppable fire burning beneath a calm exterior. Not every battle deserves your voice. Not every fool deserves your explanation. A real man chooses where he speaks, when he speaks, and most importantly, if he speaks at all. How often do you waste your words trying to win fights that don't matter? How often do you dilute your power by throwing at battles beneath you? The more you react, the less you control. The more you chase, the more you cheapen yourself. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Silence denies weak men the validation they seek. It denies chaos the oxygen it craves. It denies distraction the stage it doesn't deserve. Because silence says, I am not available for every invitation to war. The man who masters his voice masters his battles, because he chooses them wisely. Noise is compulsive. Silence is strategic. Anyone can react. It takes discipline to respond or not respond at all. The man who blurts out every feeling, every opinion, every frustration is a man controlled by impulse. But the man who pauses, considers, observes, he owns his emotions instead of being owned by them. Which man are you becoming? The one who is triggered by every minor offense? Or the one who stands like a mountain while the world trembles around him? Silence is not suppression. It's strength under control. It's patience honed into a weapon. It's refusing to let petty things knock you off your path. A real man doesn't fear being misunderstood by fools. He fears only becoming one. A man who needs constant affirmation is a man still at war with himself. But a man who walks silently, knowing his worth, knowing his direction, knowing his center, that man is dangerous. Because nothing external can steer him. When you master silence, you master detachment. You no longer need the crowd's cheers. You no longer bleed for the world's approval. You are driven by an inner fire the world can neither ignite nor extinguish. What kind of life are you building? One dependent on the shifting winds of public opinion? Or one anchored so deeply that no storm can uproot you? Silence is a sign. It signals that a man has nothing left to prove, only something left to build. Not all movement is progress. Not all speaking is strength. In fact, the loudest man in the room is usually the one trying hardest to convince himself. Real confidence doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, relentlessly, like a river carving through stone. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. Because real men understand. Presence outlives performance. Substance outweighs noise. What is stronger, the man who screams for attention, or the man so deeply rooted that attention comes to him? Noise is fleeting. Presence is permanent. A man who builds presence through silence builds a legacy that echoes long after noise has faded. Silence teaches you patience, the rarest weapon in a noisy world. Patience to wait for the right moment. Patience to strike with precision. Patience to let fools destroy themselves without your interference. Weak men cannot wait. They rush. They panic. They spill their power by acting without timing. But a man who waits sharpens his edge in the shadows. He strengthens his resolve while others exhaust themselves. What's the rush when you know you are inevitable? What's the hurry when you know the game is long and you're built for it? Patience is not passive. It's preparation. and silence is its training ground. Have you ever watched a storm build on the horizon? The world holds its breath. The air thickens. The pressure rises. Before the first crack of thunder, before the first bolt of lightning, there's a silence so deep it humbles you. That's the silence of a man who has mastered himself. Not the silence of fear, not the silence of uncertainty, but the silence of compressed power waiting to be unleashed. The storm doesn't need to announce itself. Its very presence shakes the ground. Real men are storms in stillness. They don't threaten. They don't promise. They simply arrive, and the world rearranges itself. Most will never understand this. They'll mistake your silence for weakness. They'll confuse your restraint for indecision. They'll mock what they fear. Let them, because your mission is not to convince them. Your mission is to become undeniable. Words are for the uncertain. Silence is for the inevitable. If they cannot hear the gravity of your presence, they were never meant to walk your path. You owe no explanations. You owe no justifications. You owe only the relentless fulfillment of your destiny. Speak less, move more, and let your silence make the loudest noise they ever hear. A man's silence is his sanctuary. It's where he refines himself, sharpens himself, builds himself away from the gaze of others. The world glorifies loud beginnings, viral moments, overnight success, flash-in-the-pan fame. But the world forgets that everything real was built in silence first. The roots of a mighty tree grow deep before a single branch touches the sky. The foundation of a fortress is laid far beneath the earth before the world ever sees a stone. Are you patient enough to build silently? Are you disciplined enough to let the work speak before your words ever do? Because a man who demands to be seen too soon will be exposed too soon. Silence doesn't just hide you, it prepares you. And when you emerge, you're not another voice in the crowd. You're a force that cannot be denied. Weak men seek attention to feel alive. Strong men create silence to stay alive. Because attention is a drug. It gives you a momentary high, but steals your longevity. You become addicted to applause, to being seen, to being heard, until you're a slave to it. But the man who feeds on silence, he builds something internal, something unbreakable, something that doesn't depend on outside supply. What happens when no one is watching? What happens when the crowd moves on? A real man remains, unmoved, unbroken, unbothered, because his source was never external to begin with. Attention fades, but self-mastery echoes across generations. Most men are desperate to be understood, but real men are desperate to be excellent. They know that understanding is optional, but execution is mandatory, so they speak less. They execute more. They stay quiet while the boys argue about dreams they'll never chase. They move silently while others debate, complain, stall. What matters more to you, being understood or being unstoppable? Would you rather explain yourself or build something so undeniable that explains itself? Noise explains. Results don't have to. Be the man whose life is the loudest thing about him. Not his mouth, not his posts, not his opinions. His life. Silence sharpens your edge. It turns wandering ambition into precise action. It turns desperate need into disciplined hunger. It takes the raw material of your potential and forges it into cold, hard steel. But it's not comfortable. Silence will strip you down. It will expose your fears, your weaknesses, your lies. Most can't survive that kind of honesty, so they flee into noise, into distraction, into comfort. But the man who stays, the man who endures the weight of his own truth, emerges lethal, not because he shouts louder, but because he strikes cleaner, sharper, faster, unseen until it's too late. There's a reason real kings move in silence. It's not because they fear being seen. It's because their power is so certain, so stable, that they have nothing to prove. Noise is for men still trying to convince the world they matter. Silence is for men who already know they do. Which one are you becoming? Are you screaming into the void, hoping it screams back with approval? Or are you mastering yourself in the quiet until your results roar for you? Men of noise are forgotten when the volume fades. Men of silence are remembered when the dust settles. Because silence is not absence. It's presence multiplied. In the end, every man must choose. Will you be the noise that fades, or the presence that endures? Will you be the boy who fills the air with desperate sound, or the man who commands the ground with silent gravity? Will you be the fleeting spark, or the unshakable fire? The world does not need more talkers. It needs more builders. It needs more anchors. It needs more men who understand that real power doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, silent, sure, immovable. Silence is not just the absence of noise. It's the foundation of strength. It's the mark of men who don't just chase the storm. They become it. Choose wisely, because the man who masters silence masters everything. In the end, all the noise fades. The applause, the arguments, the desperate grabbing for attention, all of it dissolves into dust, but presence remains. A man who masters silence leaves a different kind of echo, not in the chatter of crowds, but in the shifted gravity of a room after he's gone. Not in the noise of headlines, but in the permanent scars of what he built. Ask yourself one last time. When the noise dies down, when the last word is spoken, when the world forgets the ones who scream the loudest, will they still feel the weight of you? Or will you be another whisper lost in the wind? The choice was never about speaking louder. It was about becoming heavier. Heavy enough to leave a mark silence can carry forever.